You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like,
I am okay. I'm okay. I am okay.
She deserves it all. She makes me believe I'm worth something.
Nothing's gonna hurt you, baby. I was wondering, can you hold me down? She'll be the best you ever had if you let her. I think about you and nothing else. So if you would just come over, I could show you. Tell me what you wanna do to me. No, it's for the better. No, it's for the better. No, it's for the better.
You don't hate me.
Never hate you.
Close your eyes. Have no fear. The monster's gone. He's on. I'm sick of you, baby, and it's never gonna go away. I'm sick of you, baby. Some days and when I need a few friends, now and again I can never hope to keep them. Thought to give friends what I thought that they wanted. Never had they needed a good friend as I've been.
September 9th, 2001. Gary and I were skating at a hospital.
I love you, said forever, and I almost bought it. I miss fighting in your new girl is my clone. Did you think I didn't see that?
I'm sure most people would say the world would be a better place without me. I don't disagree. In fact, I've been trying to leave it for as long as I can remember.
I don't want to be alone.
My baby, my baby. You're my baby, my baby. You.
We accept the love we think we deserve.
Like, I would never fall in love again.
She'll be the best you ever had if you let her.
I don't understand anything you're doing or saying, and it's killing me.
Peter, how are you doing that?
I don't know, Lois. I'm scared. couldn't sleep last night because I know that it's over between us. And if in some distant place in the future we see each other in our new lives, I'll smile at you with joy and remember how we spent.
Maybe I did some things I shouldn't have done, but I didn't deserve that.
What is it? What's wrong?
I didn't think anyone noticed me.
I ask you how you're doing and what you are.
I miss you, and I will always miss you. But I cannot live like that.
Manipulated the fuck out of me. Like, I truly thought he was this great dude because in the first 4 months of our relationship, he was. That's who he showed me. That's what, like, I thought. That's who I fell in love with. I fell in love with this person that doesn't exist.
This was Saga bitch. So I can see you, and I hate to explore. Mom, I'm tired. Can I sleep in your house? It's a broken arm when you can't stop choosing to sleep through your alarms. May you lose in your head. You gotta let it out soon, just let it out.
Why won't you try moving on for once? That might make it easy. I know we cut all the ties, but you're never really leaving.
And I can't get out of bed. I can't.
Algebra angered me. Opera sickened me. Charlie Chaplin was a fake. And flowers were for pansies. Peace and happiness.
I wish you'd stay.
I wish I'd stayed too. Now I wish I'd stayed.
She says, I'm Mr. Loverman. And I can't get out of bed. I can't. Market's collapsing. I don't wanna be me anymore. I saw it coming, I still cried.
Holding on to that much hate will destroy a person. And I'm not about to let that happen to you.
Sort of an audio geek. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. I love you for being that way. I love it. I'm like that too. Maybe there is something wrong with me, but like I said, I'm really happy with who I am, and I know my intentions in my heart. So like I'm.
Everyone is telling me that I need help with therapy, but all I need is to be left alone.
trees or cut off the branches, set fire to the earth. If you would have told me it'd be the last time, I'd have carried its worth.
I wish we weren't impossible.
I don't know. There's something about you I like a lot.
Something about us I know would work. I swear would work.
But of course, we have to be impossible.
And of course it would be so funny.
Of course it would.
I can't help playing with the idea in my mind.
It's a comfort, a little bit. The thought that you will never be mine.
There are no consequences.
Nothing's at stake if I lie.
I loved him the way a poet loves silence, not for what it gives, but for what it allows to be felt. I loved him the same way a farmer liked the rain, grateful for the droplets even when they come too late, nurturing a life that might never really bloom. And he loved me the way that fire loves dry leaves, briefly and hungrily, only until there was nothing left to burn. He consumed me in moments of passion, but never stayed long enough to find what was left of me beneath the ash. A sad feeling it is to know you are lusted more than you are loved, to offer someone your whole heart only for them to take it in pieces, just enough to satisfy their momentary hunger, to look at someone and see eternity in their eyes and to have them stare into yours and only see an evening. I gave him love that grew roots in his soul, and he gave me fire that burned bright but burned out just as quickly. I stayed, hoping my love could transform him, but love cannot grow in someone who doesn't want to bloom. And fire does not learn to stay, it only learns loving people who don't want to. If you want to sleep tonight, you should probably skip this. I'm going to tell you a story about how I really crossed the line with the Ouija board. I think I've been haunted ever since. When I was a teenager, we broke into an abandoned insane asylum in the middle of the night to play with the Ouija board. We had to crawl through an old rusty fence just to get in. The place was massive, had abandoned buildings and grounds everywhere. It felt like we were walking into some forgotten world. It was called Brook Run, and it was not a good place. It was a state-run mental hospital that had lots of reports of neglect, abuse, and experimental treatments. It was abruptly shut down in the 90s, and many patients were left there for days to fend for themselves. Once we were in, we knew exactly where we needed to go. Building D. I remember the door wasn't locked, but it was heavy, like it didn't want you to come inside. As we made our way through the building, all you could hear is crunch, 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 broken glass everywhere. There was graffiti all over the walls, but we could only see that when our flashlights shined on them because it was pitch black. The place was very quiet, but not a good kind of quiet. The kind of quiet where you know someone else is there and you're being watched. Since there was so much broken glass, we needed to find a table or something that we could play the Ouija board on. Then we saw it in huge letters, "This way to hell," spray painted on the wall. It was like an invitation, just calling us to go further into the heart of the building. It wasn't subtle. It was like the building was daring us to go in further. Without any hesitation, we went down the stairs. The basement was something else entirely. Not only was it pitch black, but there were no obvious exits, and it wasn't easy to find the staircase that we went down. When we got down there, the first thing that we saw was a massive empty swimming pool and lots of chairs with leather restraints on the arms. They must have been using them to hold people down. It felt like we were trapped. We were on a mission though, to play this Ouija board, so we needed to find a flat surface. We split up and
been looking for one. I remember walking into one and immediately noticing one of those square doors that hold bodies like in a morgue on a refrigerator. Before I could think about it too much, the next thing I heard was bam, bam, bam. My heart stopped and I dropped my flashlight. But then I hear one of my friends laughing, put himself inside of the body refrigerator and close the door just to scare the shit out of us, and it worked. So while this was terrifying, he did in fact find a clean, flat surface that we could play. We did that. We actually played a Ouija board on a body table in a morgue at an abandoned insane asylum. We pulled the board out, laid it flat, and put our fingers on the planchette. You could immediately feel something in the air. It started pushing. I thought someone was just messing with us, but nobody was laughing. Nobody was speaking. First few letters didn't really make sense, but the next ones did. The planchette slid across the board and spelled out D-E-A-D. I stopped and took a quick breath. It started moving again. L-E-F-T. The room got even colder. H-E-R-E. Dead left here. That was enough. None of us wanted to admit it, but I think we all knew it was real. I remember hearing a really quiet whisper. You couldn't make it out at first, but somebody telling us not to be there. Packed up our stuff and ran out of the room. I remember taking one last look, knowing I'd never be back, and I swear I saw something standing in the doorway. You would think something from that night latched on to my friend Christina, since she ended up dying a couple of years later. I really think something happened to me. Strange things have been happening, especially when I sleep. That's a story for tomorrow.
How is that possible?
My husband was sexually abusing our daughter. Here are some of the signs I noticed in her that led to me finding out. As we talk about this, I'll also tell you about common signs of sexual abuse that you can watch for in your own children, even if they aren't signs that I specifically saw in her. Number 1, keeping secrets or just not talking as much as usual. I definitely started noticing my daughter keeping secrets from me, as if her shame was increasing with things that wouldn't normally have been shameful before. But also, she was getting quieter and quieter and quieter, and she was getting more and more reserved. Sign number 2, not wanting to be left alone with certain people or seeming afraid of certain people. This is not a sign I saw in my daughter, but it is a sign that you should watch for in your own children. My daughter did not seem afraid of her father and didn't usually show signs of not wanting to be left alone with him. I do remember occasionally, if I was leaving for something that was more than a day, she did seem particularly clingy with me, but she didn't express a fear of being left alone with her father. Third, an increase in regressive behaviors or behaviors that just seem like they should be for younger kids. Thumb sucking, bedwetting, things like that. This wasn't a common occurrence with her, but it did occur more than I thought it should at her age, and it did have me kind of going, everything okay? Next, overly compliant behavior. A lot of times people think that a child who's being abused is going to act out and cause a bunch of trouble, and that can happen sometimes, but a lot of times what you also get is someone who is overly compliant, and that absolutely described my daughter. She was so compliant and so worried about being compliant that it often left me questioning what made her think she needed to be so compliant. Spending an unusual amount of time alone can be a sign, particularly if it's a change in behavior. This is not something I noticed in my daughter, but it is something that you could watch for in your own child. Trying to avoid removing clothing to change or bathe. Again, this isn't something I specifically noticed in my daughter, but could be something you notice in your child. Illness or health issues that don't make sense. For example, my daughter had frequent stomach aches and headaches, but nothing really seemed to help that, and nothing that I could see externally seemed to trigger that. Other health issues you might notice is frequent UTIs. That is unfortunately a big sign that I noticed in her. I was taking her to her doctor multiple times. She was getting UTIs, she was getting kidney infections. We were running tests and doing ultrasounds on her bladder and everything, trying to figure out what was going on. I do remember asking her pediatrician one time, like, is there any way that this could be a sign of abuse? And her pediatrician said, it's not likely. It's more likely going to be an anatomical issue or something like that. And so we continued to look at that route. Unfortunately, in my daughter's case, it was a sign of abuse. This isn't something that should cause you to panic if you see it in your child, but it's certainly something that you should pay attention to. Sexual knowledge or behavior that is beyond the developmental stage that your child is in. This is definitely something that I noticed in my daughter. And what kills me is, just like everything else, there was an explanation for it. I mean, it didn't quite sit right with me, and it definitely was probably one of the biggest factors that led to me continuing to dig and dig and dig until I finally found the answer. But here's what happened. So, you know, a few years before I figured out what was going on, my husband came upstairs and said to me, our children just saw porn on the TV. And I was like, what? And I called the cable company, furious, and they said that it had something to do with if you don't have the previews turned off on adult channels that are accessible through your package, then like those previews are still visible by anyone who flips through the channels. I had no idea that was a thing. Obviously, I told them, please turn them off right now. I don't want those on our TV. And I remember thinking, I was so worried that this would scar them, that they would remember this forever. You know, they were so young. I mean, they were probably like 8 years old. Fast forward to later, there were concerning things that were connected to sexual behaviors that really concerned me. My daughter was trying to access pornography on the computer. And when I asked her why, she said, oh, well, because of that video that we saw that one time. And then there was some concerning behavior. I think she and her brother and some neighbor kids had, like, all together, they had pulled down their pants to show each other their butts or something like that. And again, I'm like, well, what would make you think to do that? And again, they said, oh, well, maybe it was that video that we accidentally saw on the TV. So that continued to be kind of like the explanation for these things, but it was enough to make me go, oh, okay. But then also, I just felt like this isn't sitting right, you know? So there are also emotional things to watch for in your kids that can give you kind of a sign that things might be going on. Obviously, any big emotional changes where the child's emotions swing to something that you're not used to, or they seem particularly negative, they seem particularly withdrawn, they seem particularly full of shame or constantly anxious, worried, things like that. And yes, I absolutely saw that in her, and it continued to increase to the point where she seemed like she was constantly just so uptight, and she would only relax and loosen up around certain people. Self-harming behaviors can be another one. This is not something I noticed in my daughter, but it's something that you should watch for in your own kids as well. Another one is a change in eating habits. Not long before I found out what was going on, my daughter did kind of stop. I mean, she didn't stop eating, but she certainly started refusing food a lot. That was actually one of the biggest red flags to me that kind of made me say, okay, I'm not going to stop taking anymore because something's going on. She just kept on saying no to food, and that was strange for her. And one more to watch for is nightmares or fears of being alone at night. And yes, looking back, my daughter did experience these. She didn't tell me about nightmares very often, but she was very afraid to be left alone at night. What she said was she was afraid of somebody breaking into her bedroom and kidnapping her. That's what she repeated over and over and over again. She had heard of Elizabeth Smart, and she was obsessed with, like, oh my gosh, somebody was kidnapped from their own bedroom, and so she was constantly afraid that she was going to be kidnapped, taken from her bedroom. We had a big German Shepherd that we moved his crate into her room so that he could sleep there with her and she would feel better because she worried about that so much. Looking back, I think that was a sign, even though the explanation was kind of unrelated. Like, obviously, nobody was taking her from her bedroom and kidnapping her at night, but I think somehow those were probably connected. Somehow that insecurity, being in her bedroom alone at night, things like that. But ultimately, here's what I cannot stress enough. Any changes, any sudden changes in your child's behavior that don't have an easy explanation, pay attention. Listen to your gut, and if something seems off, do not stop looking for the answer. Ultimately, that's my best explanation as to how I figured out what was going on with my daughter. I've made videos before where I said that my husband didn't show a lot of signs, or that I didn't notice anything in him. And then people have said, well, then what made you start asking that question? Because my daughter was starting to seem like something was wrong. I could tell that something wasn't right when it came to her. I just didn't know it was him at first. So that's the most important thing I can tell you, is there's so many signs you can watch for in your children. And yes, it's good to know those. But also the biggest thing is watch for anything that seems like it's a sudden change, like it's not in character for your child, or anything in your gut that just tells you something's off here, and I need to look and find that answer.
Let's talk about what happens when you play with Ouija boards. If you're new here, hi. I usually talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I went an email which allowed anyone who finds this page to send me their ghost stories. And let me tell you, I have been reading the most terrifying stories I've ever read, and this is one of them. This is the second story to the email that I was reading on Wednesday's video. So let's get into it. This story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons I'm going to respect that. The person who sent me this email starts off by telling me that this all happened at her best friend's house, and it sounds completely fake. And to better understand the context of why they were playing with a Ouija board, it was for a sleepover. And to better understand where they were playing it, I can only imagine it as like a shed/barn, you know, the ones that have like an attic. But the person who sent me this says that when they were asking questions to the board, the planchette was moving, but not in the stereotypical movie way, but it was answering the questions. And as soon as one of her friends asks the question, "Are you here with us?" they begin to hear footsteps above them in the attic and scratching against the wood panels on this shed. So they said goodbye, and everyone ran out of the shed, obviously because they were scared. But it doesn't stop there. They decided to play hide and go seek in the dark on this multi-acre property, and 3 of them decided to hide in the shed. And this part gives me chills because this has happened to my boyfriend before. If you know, you know. As they were hiding in the shed, the light starts flickering on and off. But not like a light bulb is about to go out. They can hear the light switch being flipped up and down. And paired with that already terrifying experience of a light switch flipping up and down by itself, they could hear something breathing next to the staircase that led up to the attic where they were hearing the footsteps earlier. Nobody checked it out, and I'm assuming they just got up and left. And she says at the end of her email that nobody likes that shed anymore, and they stay far away from it whenever they're visiting this friend. And I think that this story in particular is very scary to me because I've played with a Ouija board, and if you haven't seen that video, go watch it. And I know whatever that Ouija board conjures when you are playing it is 100% real. However, I would have said cut the cameras if I started hearing stuff while I was playing. I heard stuff afterwards when we were not in the same room. If any of that stuff would have happened during... And what I think is ironic is my boyfriend was the only person I knew that has had an experience where he heard the light switch flipping up and down and scratching simultaneously because of a spirit that he conjured. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the video I made a while back about my boyfriend and the doll, because it also ties into my experience at the museum. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.